Okay, then I believe we can kick it off. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another round of the European Data Portal and the Support Center for Data Sharing's Data Talk session. Today, I'm very happy to be joined by Kateryna Onyiliogwu. I apologize for my bad pronunciation and invite you to correct me on how to properly say your name. She will be discussing how to profit from open data and to share what's happening in the open data and data sharing space in Ukraine. Kateryna, I give the floor to you.
Hi, you almost said it my surname correctly. It's Onyiliogwu, yes. And I work in the project TAPAS. It's USAID UK funded Transparency and Accountability in Public Administration project, which actually supports the Ministry of Digital Transformation in the sphere of open data. And actually, I work with the National Open Data Team. And usually, I don't say I work with National Open Data Team. I usually say I work as a part of National Open Data Team, because for us, we don't see the differences of who works where. It's about one team who is representable of all different people who have their own, who support the program in so different ways. So for the last 4 years, I actively work in the sphere. And actually, this is a time when open data sphere in Ukraine became quite active, quite dynamic, and started showing a lot of impact in different spheres of Ukrainian life. And for us, usually for our team, we have four priorities, four priorities in which we work at the same time. So first one, obviously, it's all about regulatory framework for open data. We need to make sure that the work it's done is sustainable. For us, the development of regulatory framework is actually quite important for that the reason of sustainability. We don't want government bodies to open up the data because they have political will, or because it's voluntary, or because it's cool. No, for us, important that it's done because they have to renew, they have to sustain the quality of data. The government officials have to make sure the highest quality and have to respond to the feedback from general from the public and the users of open data. So we have this decree 835, which actually dictates which kind of data sets have to be published. And what I actually for me, what's special about this decree, because, this is just another decree from some government body. No, for us, it's a special thing because every year we renew it. This is like our way of engaging with civil society and businesses and ask, so what data sets are missing from the list? Because as the sphere is developed, we find out more and more, and we have different growing demand for different data sets. So every year, we do the open call to community asking, tell us what data sets do you need? What something is there written in the decree that you see doesn't work? And this is the same for government officials. They, for example, they can provide us information on what's written in the decree that they don't understand, that needs to be expanded, they need to be removed, and so on. So I'm really excited to the fact that we have this mechanism of engaging with community, with users, and make sure that the decree, this legal document, is actually corresponding to the need of users and not there just like to have a decree. So this, like 21st of October, we're gonna have 5 years anniversary of decree, and we're actually planning to celebrate it. And I hope maybe you'll write a blog post for European Data Portal just to talk about the approach we took to developing the decree and how we communicate with community and how it's changed from the first days when open data in Ukraine was just for geeks to now when open data is for businesses and millions of Ukrainians using the data. So this is like a story there. So yeah, this is first, it's like regulation, right? Second one for us is important is capacity building. So we need to work with government officials to teach them, to learn them how to publish open data, and we have to engage with community to populate the data sets and to engage with users to use open data. So for us, capacity building, it comes on a different level, from government officials to different audiences of users. And in the past, we ran quite a few training programs. We provided some learning materials, like usual stuff. But this year, we realized, no, this is not enough. We need to think about scaling. We need to reach beyond existing communities, and we have to reach. Ukraine is big. We cannot focus only on the biggest cities and so on. We have to think about sustainably scaling the use of open data and the publishing of open data. So actually this year, at the moment, we are working on developing the National Center of Competence for Open Data, so both online and offline. So we developed and adjusted this framework. There is Open Data Institute in the past developed this framework, learning framework in the sphere of open data, so you can select which level of the user you are, which knowledge do you need, and so on. So we are working on this tool, this resource, where the person can do a little test, find out which level they are. Are they somebody who is beginner, or you are a strategist, or you're actually a practitioner, and we'll provide you the path of learning in open data. So I hope that in a couple of months, we'll be able to present it to Ukrainian public and actually get a feedback on this learning cycle, learning processes. And then third one for us, obviously, open data portal. We love our portal because it's as like our degree. We always work on making sure it has good technical capacity, but also what's important to us, that we get feedback from the users on how well they can use the portal, how easy it is. And actually, last year, we did some analysis. We do a lot of Google Analytics on our portal. We do a lot, we always promote use open data, but then let's use our own data from the portal that we collected to analyze what is the behavior even of the user on portal, and what people are looking for, and because usually we have on the portal all different sections with different type of information, and do they actually read it? Do they use it? Is it actually useful? And actually we realized that most people looked just for data, which is fantastic, and they didn't want any other information there. It was useless. That's why we actually decided, okay, so we saw the data, and we have to make a decision on the data to attract more users and make sure it's quite accessible. So at the moment, actually, we're changing the design of the portal. We would like to strip down all those things that nobody cares about and focus on the accessibility and making sure that person can find the data that they're looking for and they need. So this is we have lots of things in the process in the working, but yeah, technical capacity, this is quite important for us. And first one, actually, it's innovation. This is kind of what this topic of this conversation is about. It's about innovation with open data. And actually, for the last 4 years, we ran Open Data Challenge. We actually took the idea of UK's Open Data Challenge and got inspired by actually European Open Data Incubator that finished a couple of years ago, but had a great impact on how we design our incubation programs. And each year we run incubation program for the startups that using Ukrainian open data. And actually, at first when we started this challenge, we started such an early stage. We always were scared that, oh, maybe there are no startups. There would not be startups using open data. But actually, we noticed that it was a starting point, and the demand for that kind of support and incubation grew every year. So I think for the 4 years, we had almost 1,000 applications from all over Ukraine. And for this period of time, I think we financed around more like 20 something startups, and the startups managed to have a product and actually started making money, make a profit out of those products and grow their users. So what I really and this is like engaging with startup community, and we opened a lot of eyes to different startups. There is data that's in that topic and they can utilize it. So I can see now that it's probably one of our most successful projects because we really grew this ecosystems of users, and there are lots of products created that use open data. And for me, it's quite interesting. I always was interested in actually in business models of how do you actually make money out of open data? Like, it's free, obviously, it's open data is free. So how do you make money out of it? And I noticed that the most projects, the most famous one, like we have open data bot, you control, we have code on the palm, you can just count and count and count them. They actually aggregate different sources of data to find out information about something. For example, a company, right? You have a company and you want to check the company, and there is no one place to find out all information about companies. So you have to use business register. You have to use the register around like tax register. It's a different one. It's a different government body that collects the data. Then you have courts register. It's again totally different. And usually the data is not particularly interoperable. So all the startups, they use this aggregation method of aggregating information about something from different sources and giving this info in few seconds, in few clicks, like whatever, in a bot, in a chat bot, right? Now, I think in Ukraine, most people don't use business register anymore as a register. They usually go to the services, click, and here we go. And we have like millions of users. People don't know that's based on open data. They don't need to know, every user doesn't need to know how it's made, but actually they're using it. Like, so our estimated is that, for example, checking company, this kind of practice using open data, it's as minimum 2.5 million of Ukrainians. It's minimum. It's like really like a number that like we need to count it better, but this is the minimal number that we can say for sure right now. Or for example, when I say checking something, we have like a building. We have lots of buildings in Ukraine. You need to buy a flat in a new building, and you need to check, is this building and the company who's building this building actually have all the permits? Because in Ukraine we have problems that there is high corruption risks in Ukraine around these permits, and you need to check. Oh, well, so am I risking all my money, investing my money into this beautiful whatever flat, and then I have problems with the documents? And actually we have lots of scandals in Ukraine when big buildings they appear in Kiev, and people say, well, but here the building had to have 4 floors. Why it's 20 floors? Like, why it's so high? And obviously they have the legal issues. So for example, other services like Monitor Estate, we have Nora, they aggregate information about buildings. So the most successful businesses in Ukraine around open data, it's actually aggregating information about particular things in particular sphere, right? So and I think it solves the problem of the fact that data is not interoperable, because startups that are technologically savvy, they find out the ways of connecting all of it together and provide the services. And what recently, and like kind of wanted to go into our new, like another priority that we have, but kind of links to this one, about studying the impact of open data and understanding how it's being used, not in the ways that we just know as a community, right? So for example, now when we look at the impact of business and let's say checking of the companies, for me, I found out literally like a few days ago, I was pretty excited that most banks in Ukraine, big banks, they actually they integrate these products who are aggregating the data. They use the API of the services integrated into their service. So when I'm the user of the banking service, come use my application as a business owner, and I would like to make a payment, I already can see who I'm paying the money, you know. And there are cases where business owners, they change their mind, like, no, this is not the company we're working on. I probably shouldn't pay money. So we have major banks slowly integrating the APIs from open data, and actually we see that the use is spread pretty deep into all sorts of population, and actually it's thanks to this aggregation services. So that's what I really what's really fascinating for me, how money is being made in Ukraine. However, like usually all these business models are built around premium model, and normal people, just people, activists, journalists, they get all of this data for free. But if you're commercial services, please pay us for the using of the data. And probably your need is so high that we need to charge you. Basically, this is the logic of how it all works. And in general, I think this is like our priority, like this studying impact is our biggest priority this year, particularly. So for the first time, we started looking into different spheres and seeing, so which data sets have impact, and let's unpack all the stories around the impact. So we looked into building sphere, recently launched a report looking at the buildings, looking at this sphere, talking about particular cases with numbers and scenarios, actually just not just to show, oh, this is then doing this and that, but actually unpack the whole scenario of how it's happening. And next we are looking into the health, into the repair of roads, then the transparency of public finance, and so on. So we have a big KPI on case studies this year, but we see that this is the only way to tell the simple stories, do a deep research, but then tell a simple stories of the use. This is how we will be able to scale the use of the open data to even wider public. So this is our story. But actually, if we talk about open data, like we have still lots of challenges, but we are working on it. But I think less developed thing in Ukraine is shared data, right? So because and we started, we probably just like organically started thinking about this topic, because we saw that some places there were need to discuss these topics or start discussing. I think, what does it mean sharing data, right? How is one shares with another? What kind of regulation do we need to make it, I don't know, to make it work? And we are just standing nowhere with this. I think this is it's kind of we only start thinking that because we have like this interesting kind of problem. So if you have high quality open data, then some government bodies would like to provide services that the user will pay for some data, right? Because it's a question of sustainability. If you would like, for most people, for government officials, it's a question of sustainability, to make sure data are up to date, that is through API, that it can be used. But at the same time, our community says, well, this is public information, it all should be free. All the data, always free. can be no charge for it or not. So, but we have like some practices when some of the data is actually being shared just with few companies, the users, and they conclude some agreements and kind of pay for it and so on. But actually, it's kind of, there's no like regulation around it. We don't know. I cannot say if some government body who is charging, is it normal price for it? Is it more expensive? How should they pay for it? And so on. So I think this is something like a next year in our sphere to think about and figure out how should it work in Ukraine. Yeah, so I think I talked so much.
You did a very concise and detailed overview about the current situation for both open data and now data sharing in Ukraine with very concrete examples. Thank you for that. I also now want to open the floor to the audience. If they have any questions for Kateryna, you are free to either unmute yourself or raise your hand and unmute yourself to ask or to type it in the chat. Otherwise, I also have a series of questions.
I love questions.
Have a look first.
I'm usually the one who's asking all the questions, so I love questions.
Otherwise, my first question links back to one of your 4 points about capacity building and engaging with the community. But how so Ukraine is quite broad with different different technological levels in different regions and cities. How exactly are you engaging with such a broad community and still ensuring that you get a representative sample from the different stakeholders and different interested parties?
How do we plan our like engagement, right? For us, we know that some data sets are super valuable, some that are not super valuable, but it's important they're open. So we try to engage on particular engage community in particular data sets. Let's say we work in ecology, we open up the data in ecology sector. So who is our audience in ecology sector? Who are these NGOs who is using it? Who are those startups that are using this data? Who are potential users? So we always try to like do this community mapping and figure out who is it interest for. So not to reach wider audience, not knowing who are those people and like hope we're gonna reach them, but actually focus on particular communities. And usually, thanks to this, like methods are not important here because it can be different. We like also all sorts of hackathons, camps, trainings. Doesn't matter how you do it, but actually we try to engage in a particular sphere communities to make sure it's being used. And then as we engage with them, we receive more demand, and it's like rolling stone. You keep like grow this and grow and grow and grow. So actually now, if you look into each community, our national open data team, we can actually point out. So the users are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can actually we grow our knowledge and we see how they're using it. And what I like, those communities now are the ones who they're the ones who kind of request data all the time. So, okay, thank you, good data sets, we want more. And they companion to you to open up more data. And for me, actually, this is what I like the most, when I see that those communities who we engage with, they start requesting and doing campaigning and being successful, and more data is opened up, not by us, but thanks to their effort. This is for me a real win. It's like, okay, we made our job, they know how to do it, they can work with government, they can be as an NGOs, whatever NGO startups, they done it once, they can do it more times. So that's it, they learn like the cycle, right? This is, I think, the like height of our like what success for me is in the sphere as a national open data team. So this is how this is how we engage in mostly times.
Okay. Another question in chat. Do you notice any resistance from government bodies to share their data?
Well, I think in general, shared data, open data, the resistance will be there all the time. Like you cannot escape from the resistance. It's just, I think the conversation conversation is changing. Like when we started 4 years ago, most people ask, so what is this open data thing? You know, people ask what it is. But now government officials know exactly what it is. And when government officials resist so much, like, okay, guys, something is wrong here. What are you hiding? So actually, their resistance brings a lot of questions to the community. It's like, are you hiding these registers because the corruption is hidden there? Like, what are the practices that you hide? For example, we had a massive story in December last year when the construction permits register was opened. So the register, the community asked for to open this register for the last 3 years. But actually the sphere is so corrupt that we understood that the register is not being opened for particular reasons. And actually, when the register was opened, the exact register, you could see how government officials wrote some notes for themselves, approve permit or not. So actually, you know what I mean? It's like we opened the register, like, oh my God, everyone was like, what are those notes? What these people were writing? This is like, do not send, don't give permission. Doesn't mean they're gonna, sometimes they contact and say, oh, I need more money to get you into the register and so on. So it uncovered massive corruption schemes. And I'm so happy that it's kind of like, I'm having this register been open, but we understand that when we advocate for the opening of some data sets and open, we uncover, not just for us, it's not about anymore about opening data itself. We understand that it can cover a lot of corruption issues. So it's like a big corruption fight, not fight, but like struggle, yeah, corruption struggle that we have. But it's not that many, I would say, in Ukraine. Now it's getting better and better, and actually, thanks to political will, our Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, supports a lot of this work, and one by one we tackle all the government officials who refuse, one by one. Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that there's less resistance, and those who do resist, you have some interesting findings.
yeah.
I'd like to open the floor to John Franco then, who also has a question.
Hi, Kat. Thank you for being with us today, first of all. With reference to what you were just saying, there's an interesting concept sometimes used of working like we were surrounded by glass walls. So we don't want to take privacy or from civil servants. We just want them to be aware that because of the nature of their work, the citizens may have simply the right to check in it. And so it's absolutely in their rights to write notes for themselves to remind about stuff, as long as that stuff is legit. And we don't want them to feel resistance simply because expecting the citizens to be at their back spying on how they work. It's just a matter of inspecting how their taxpayers' money is spent and how democracy is administered. My question is in reference to something you said earlier that caught my attention a lot. That is, you are evaluating how to make the portal, the new portal, more, let's say, down to the point, the essential features being required or not. And that feels to me a bit in contradiction with some of the trends you see out there, adding more frills and visualization and stuff that moves and sings and dances. How did you discover this kind of demand from your users? How clear is that? Is it something you can perhaps offer us as a learning? What should we look at if to realize that we are exaggerating with cool features and getting away from the basics?
Well, basically, it's when I talk strip down of things on the portal, I don't mean that it's gonna be disappear. It means that how do I say it correctly? We created this concept of national center of competence, where actually it's gonna be like we're gonna have impact stories, we're gonna have I don't know, training materials, we're gonna have like cool videos, news, we're gonna notify about our strategy, how we work, what successes we have. So like all of the stuff is gonna be cooler, more engaging, written better words. It's not going to be technical open data things that nobody understands. You read and like, oh my God, what's written in this sentence? What they want? What is this decree? Right? We want kind of rework to make the language about open data easier, I think. Right? So if you want to use data, here's the portal, loving it, take your data. But if you want to engage all this, wow, be part of the ecosystem, here the part for you. So I think it's not just about stripping some or moving something, but it's about making language easier, more accessible to normal person, not just a geek or whatever. So for this, I think we use a lot of Google Analytics. Like we analyze each page. So how many views, and we realized that things that we try to do and the way we try to do it just didn't work. So okay, so what do we have it? Why when I use some kind of, let's say, product, I want just to have my problem solved, right? So I want, like, I don't know, whatever, have my problem solved. When I look on a data portal, my problem is you look for data. So that's what you need to find. And I want to make sure that your problem is solved easily. And you don't have to understand all the regulation and do something else and something else. Just you have a clear path. So, and I'm actually quite disappointed by our team that we didn't use the Google Analytics before in such a deep way. We just had our assumptions and we're happy with it. And suddenly,
there's an interesting point on that, because recently we've been actually talking with the member states for something called the DAISY. That is one of the research work that Europe does to understand the progress of the member states. And some countries are actually concerned that if user analytics is too aggressive, it may actually violate the privacy of the users. That's an interesting point. So I'm all with you about the need to understand what our users need, because otherwise there's no point. We may risking throwing taxpayer money out of the window. At the same time, it's important that particularly the techies among us, the ones who actually build the systems for us, are aware to be cautious there. Even just for respect of people's privacy or perceived privacy. We can analyze as much as we like, as long as we are careful of what we do with the data, that we destroy it afterwards and we aggregate it, blah, blah, blah. And the consent is captured and the original spirit is maintained. But I'm sure you do this already. And if you don't tell anyone, but tell your techies.
Well, we don't know like we just see numbers, moves, and so on. This is all anonymous. So
exactly.
I don't want to be engaged in that. I don't really need to know, to be engaged in this kind of thing. But we need to, this year, what we understood, that we need to get out of our cuddly space where we're so happy and make all these assumptions and like, oh, this is so cool, and apparently it's not so cool. And actually we are not scared to learn all the time and change. I think like the sphere is growing, we are growing as a people, as a team, we are growing, we are changing, and we have constantly to adapt to make it better. Why not? This is our job. So use data to make more use of data.
Thank you, then. I will open the floor for one last question. Either unmute and speak or message in the chat to ask a question, or otherwise we can look to wrapping up for today in mind of time as well.
Yeah.
It seems that there are no further questions. Thank you very much, Kateryna, for joining and for sharing these amazing insights into the situation in Ukraine. For those who are interested, there's also a country blog post written by Kateryna about how to profit from open data in Ukraine, available on the European Data Portal. For those who want to revisit what was discussed here, this recording or this session was recorded and will be live next Monday and shared on the EDP channels. We look forward to further engaging with you and joining these sessions going forward. And Kateryna, it was a pleasure. Please continue to share your work and your insights with us. And we, of course, are happy to also support you in promoting it and supporting the increase in awareness and impact of open data across and beyond Europe.
And Irina, perhaps we can add that we are populating our calendar for the future data stories. So if you have a nice data story to tell, let us know. Write to us at info@europeandataportal.eu or info@eu-datasharing.eu. A lot of you, and let us know what you would like to share with the community, and we'll be happy to consider this with you.
Exactly. If you have any upcoming events, any news or insights that you're aware of, or any practical examples of use cases that utilize open data, please don't hesitate to contact us either via the emails Gianfranco shared or via our social media channels, how you found us, most likely. In the meantime, have a good afternoon, everyone, and stay dry.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.